I've changed my life so much as a result of having a kid and wanting to be a good dad and wanting to spend as much time on the weekends in particular around my kid as possible. But then the idea that there's going to be this moment in the future where, and it'll happen slowly, but like, you know, when she starts first grade and all of a sudden she's out the crib for 6-7 hours a day or whatever, how long that takes. And then the idea that at some point they're going to get so old that you're not even going to need to be there, like that they're not going to want you around. That's kind of crazy. And then I'm 55 fucking years old and I got to figure out something else to do with my life at that point.
Geriatric porn.
Why do you have to figure out something else to do with your life?
Because I just see dudes doing this where like the kids leave the nest and then they have to figure out like a hobby to kind of define the post-parent part of their life.
But you're like not a stay-at-home dad. That's for people that the kid was their entire existence.
But I've taken on like 2 days a week of stay-at-home dad-ism, whereas like for my whole life, it was like Monday through Sunday, I'm just going to like grind the fuck out of whatever. I feel like
if a woman that was, because that's more of a woman thing, I feel like if they heard you, they'd be like, I mean, you're still doing all this stuff. You
have a weekend now.
My girl would be deeply offended by me acting like I'm spending so much time with the kid.
I don't even, when she has to go to school or whatever, I don't even know what I'll do my entire life. Like I've made very literal.
Like I'm already not out of the house like 9-10 hours a day. Yeah, fuck.
You probably just continue running your business.
And that's such a consistent thing with your girl is that once you have a kid, she will get mad at you for comparing your struggle to her struggle because her struggle is always going to be so much worse when it comes to the kid. The kid is dangling off her titty, draining her vital life resources.
You just have to make your other struggle really hard. You have to be like, you don't know what it's like running this company. Like you gotta fight them on that front.
That's a great idea. Make up like a fake struggle so I can get more relationship sympathy.
You don't know what I'm going through. You wouldn't even know. You handled the 1-year-old. Congratulations. Every other girl in the world did that. You know what I did today?
Fake mental health. Like just
I interviewed Richard Spencer about race and IQ. Do you know how hard
it is? Dude, I feel like it's such a crazy badge of honor that now I have a Media Matters piece that basically accuses me after having interviewed like, you know, many thousands of black people over the years that somehow having Richard Spencer as an ex-Nazi who's like disavowing his Nazi past or, you know, white identitarian past, whatever, that this was enough for them to declare that No Jumper is a safe haven for white supremacy. Like, I just am so taken aback by this and just, it's like I'm really, I want to like put that article on a shirt or something so that everybody can know, like, look at what they're doing to me and it could happen to you too.
Yeah. Oh, 100% they don't care about anything that actually happened. But to me, the funny part was I listened to one of those that you did, and at some point you said, like, you know, it's a bit different now. Like, I feel like Media Matters won't even do, like, I think you specifically said in one of them that, like, there's no way Media Matters is even going to notice.
Classic technique. You sort of bait them into writing about you like that, yeah.
And they wrote it. Is it on the Wikipedia page yet?
I don't know. That would be fucking interesting, though, if I could make it there. Thanks for giving them that idea.
I did a video about PETA yesterday, and PETA was commenting on it, trying to get clout on my page.
Really? Yeah. Was it working?
Sort of. I was I thought it was cool.
Right.
Like, I made this thing making fun of PETA, and then PETA, like, actually sort of engaged and was like, no, we don't do that. And then,
yeah.
You know,
but do you have any sort of, like, real hate monger points at this point? Like, has anyone ever tried to take, like, your work and be like, look, this is evidence of him being a terrible person? Or is it more like, I mean, we just don't think this guy's funny?
There was a ton of, probably my favorite one. I mean, there's lots of that stuff, especially during the pandemic when things were like real heated. But my favorite one was someone did a video like basically saying I was like whatever anti-COVID mask kind of guy. And they go, and at one point on his podcast, The Boys Cast, and he said it's written down, quote, "Master gay." They quoted me saying "Master gay" in a piece.
Dude, that's a great thing to get canceled for, though. Because like the mask thing, it just aged so fucking poorly.
Of course.
Like of all the things to get canceled for, like I got canceled for fat phobia, which is like such a good thing to get canceled for. Like nobody really gives a fuck.
But I was saying that. I was like, Danny had his fucking shows canceled, and like you've had to deal with like real backlash as a result. And that's what I was telling her. I'm like, yo, if it wasn't them saying I was down with white supremacy, or it wasn't them saying that I'm basically Uncle Fester or whatever, it would be something like that. Like they're always gonna find something.
Always. And does it matter anymore? I don't think it matters anymore.
I think your fans probably love you for it and would consider you to be a fucking coward for not having done that. Do you have some sort of like penis implant in there? Because your ball sack is looking huge.
Oh, you have a nice ball sack?
I mean, I just feel like I could see like some sort of mass of testicular tissue down there.
That's kind of what I have.
I don't want to distract from
ball-
this conversation.
ball
I
that's
love that
bigger.
you're just burning a hole, just X-ray vision right on my crotch.
You're more of a dick guy. Me and Danny are more ball guys.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. And that's there should be a niche for that.
Well, we thought of an amazing like monetization strategy, which is like imagine if there was an OnlyFans
All
associated with
balls.
sledge lords, and you could just go on it, and it's sort of like us, like doe-eyed, like in these sort of like meek poses, just naked, like standing next to each other and shit.
It'd be sweet.
We really want to
Soft.
zero in on the gay community.
Why do we need masculinity to be a part of our?
Okay, so it's Sledge Lords is your main one, and then Gay Lords is like the side.
You thought
Gay
it was
lords?
so fast. I've been thinking about this idea for weeks, and I didn't think of gay lords.
Gaylords, like
Gay
Meet the
lords would have been
Parents.
a better name for this podcast than sledge lords.
We got LGBTQ plus points too. People would be like, "Can we write negative articles, or is one of them homosexuals?"
They both seem to be in relationships with women.
Schmegma Lords.
just like the what was the article that wrote that you're a white supremacist, or what was the outlet?
Media Matters.
Media Matters would think twice because they wouldn't know. Like all it takes is just you declare if you shoot up an elementary school but you're transgender, that cancels all the hate pieces.
Yeah,
on
we're
you.
not hearing
You're
anything
good.
about them.
Nothing.
Meanwhile, we have a Richard Spencer debate going on. You would never have known it was a debate from reading that article, or that it's like a home for white supremacy. You have me, Destiny, and Richard Spencer basically all talking about how much we like Biden and how much we support Ukraine, and like there was nothing offensive to be talked about besides the lack of conversation about his racist past.
I
That's
want
the
to talk
one.
about the real
I think that's a
offensive
fair
part.
point.
If you are right, but worse than that, it's like, don't forget, like these places that are saying, "Hey, you have this guy on," they all made him famous by having him on a bunch because they, at the time, those places were foaming at the mouth for any guy that would publicly be like, no, I'm racist. And they were like, oh my God. Like they were so happy that there was a guy that was like a few guys that were public about like, yeah, I'm racist. So from Vice to every CNN had him on 3 times a week to tell about he's racist. Then they can go look.
And when I searched up,
they
like
made him famous and put guys like that on so much. For then to go, you have him on. You're like, yeah, because you made him popular by having him on.
And then they put him in the box of like, you can't talk to this guy anymore. Because like literally, if you go to YouTube, like they have like banned like recent search results, I'm pretty sure, for him, or at least it was this way when I looked at Richard Spencer interview, like before we did the interview. It's like 2015, 2016, and then nothing else.
Oh, he
You
disappeared.
you have to look at it in reverse chronological, and you could start to find these live streams that he's actually been on in more recent times. And by doing that, it was how I actually figured out, like, oh, this guy's not going to come on here and be repeating a bunch of Trump talking points because he's clearly like realized that he doesn't embrace that or whatever. And I don't know, but they got Aiden Ross for like similar shit at the same time. That Just Pearly things, they're fucking all over her. It's like a real coordinated attack on anybody in the sort of like mainstream youth creator space or whatever that has the gall to like speak to anybody outside
I've
of
seen
their
that.
usual group.
I feel like I've seen this wave happen like 3 times in my life. Maybe you're like a little, less tapped into that side of things like 4 or 5 years ago. You know what I mean? But this is why in general conservatives are all so fucking gay. It's because legitimately
conservatives.
Conservatives stink, and one of the reason for it is that like there's kind of like the acceptable liberal people, but then anyone that sort of gets pushed to the right or whatever, they only get to exist saying anything wild for like a year before they disappear. And then all that's left is like really dorky, like, Matt Walsh types, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of that thing where you're like, hey, there's this new guy that's saying the wild, there's always kind of like how there's a new rapper that's always going to say that, like, be the wildest like killer. There's always like a new person that'll say like more wild shit than you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's always some, oh, there's a 25-year-old. There's going to be a new guy that'll ask more questions that you're not supposed to ask.
But do you bust out
and then
like
those guys disappear?
Do you bust out talking points on your podcast that doesn't exactly capture your audience, where like the audience sort of reacts to it? Because I feel like that is what happened to Richard Spencer.
You have to constantly be training your audience that like, hey, this is where I say what I think. I'm not your like savior.
Yeah, because that's what happened with Richard Spencer, is that he got destroyed by the liberal media, got a fan base of people on the right, but then he turned his back on Trump, and so all of them, they all hate him too. So I don't know if he has any kind of like crowdsourcing or Patreon. He couldn't have a Patreon, but like I don't think his initial fan base fucks with him at all, which is really what made me interested in talking to him. You know, he's a complicated guy, I guess.
Yeah. I respect that you will bring like anybody in here, no matter how canceled, to hear them out because you believe in free speech. And that was your whole thing. And yeah, clearly you're not a white supremacist. Like fucking 70% of the staff is black.
I was just listening to Sam Harris talking to Lex Friedman about would he interview Hitler.
My name
at
is
various
Sam Harris.
at various stages in Hitler's life. Would you have interviewed Hitler?
When he was a watercolor painter, that's what I want to get.
No one says less with more words than Sam Harris.
Yeah.
The three of us have been combined into this setting to speak in a way that and we're doing a podcast. Like, you don't need to stop. We got it.
We know Sam. Yeah. No, but I mean, I'm listening to a fucking 4.5 hour Lex Friedman conversation with him. So I'm in
Did you listen to it on double at least?
I'm listening to it using the power of love, actually, which is pretty cool. I haven't listened to many podcasts using
the power of love.
It's just what Lex Friedman's always talking about. Like whenever he's talking about anything, like why is it okay for him to have interviewed Kanye? It's like, well, it's all about love. It's all
why does he get to
what
do it?
does this mean? Yeah. But Sam was super honest with Lex about the fact that he thought it was irresponsible for him to platform Kanye. And
Sam Harris would think everything's irresponsible. He's got very much like, don't do that energy.
I don't know.
He's like a stepdad that's like, come on.
I've heard Sam Harris interview ex-Nazis, and that was part of why I thought that the door was open for me to have the conversation with Rich Spencer. Even though, and also because I'm like a Destiny dude. Like I'm watching Destiny, and all these fools have conversations with people that are like completely on the opposite end of shit ideologically with them.
Yeah.
If anything, the problem is that Destiny and him didn't really have much to disagree on. They seemed like they pretty much ended up.
And you sort of like. They don't run like podcasts in the hip hop space.
Exactly.
They're in the edgy white boy world is, I get it because you're just like, hey, why do I have like, let me sort of, I think that someone like you, probably what you're smart at is seeing energy. And you're like, oh, there's some energy in this like pocket here. Let me see what these guys are all about. Right?
I refuse to treat my audience like idiots. I think my audience actually wants to hear these kind of conversations and wants to hear canceled people have fucking conversations and wants to, hear this shit out. And it's like, I feel like it's kind of like there's a big incentive and there's a lot to be gained by not having conversations with controversial people in my world. It's like Nori the other day was saying like, should we have Andrew Tate on the podcast? And he's just immediately getting destroyed left and right. And this is Nori, the same dude who deleted his Kanye interview because he was saying
he's not about that life. He shouldn't.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, him interviewing Andrew Tate. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, for just him specifically, it's kind of like, listen, you dipped your toes into being the controversial interview guy. You didn't like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
but
like,
I mean,
you want to get drunk and like tell stories.
That was the very beginning of the Kanye being so bad that you couldn't even have a conversation with him thing. Which Lex Friedman managed to avoid because he talked to Kanye and they didn't have to delete it. This has been a clip from my new podcast, Sledge Lords with Danny Mullen. We're dropping a new episode every week, so either hit the link in the description or search up the Adam 22 channel on YouTube. Appreciate you guys.